Recording in progress.
So if the Rav is ready, we're ready to begin.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, so go ahead.
You
You're on mute.
okay? You ready?
Yes.
Okay, we're gathered today. We're gathered today to give the Kavod Achron for Isha Tznua, Isha Kashera, someone who was really, really close to our family, close to our Kehillah, Mrs. Mirel, baby Yosef Rabbi Kipper. She was an unbelievable woman. What Chazal say about B'nai Slavka, she was such a, anytime you spoke to her, all her words, every word of wisdom that came out of her. She was someone who, you saw that she was a person who was very knowledgeable in all the Divrei Tanakh. Akiva, there's something wrong with the voice? Akiva.
No, they can hear. Go ahead. Everyone can hear.
Okay.
There's a very big echo.
She was someone who could be a Rebbetzin, a mamish Rebbetzin in every way, of knowledge in halakha, a knowledge in Tanakh, a knowledge in Divrei Chachamim. And she came to my shir for many, many, many years. There was somebody that every time she understood everything in Chazal, all the lines. She was so makbid in halacha, so makbid that everything should be done properly. A real Isha Kashera, really Isha Tzidkanias, really a Bitachon. Kama Bala, her husband, who was the Gabbai, Reb Beryl was the Gabbai Baba Smedrish, and real Gabbai with Beloi Mubin Amila, who really cared about the Kehillah, cared about every person in the Kehillah. And she was the wife who supported him and was with him. I remember when he's not well, unbelievable. I shouldn't move away from him a second at home and in Baycrest. And did everything possible to make it comfortable for him, to make it possible to go through his illness. Such a dedicated wife in every way. So much every time. What could I do for him more and more and more? Kama B'nevi Ashua, her children. Getzel of Shalom. Getzel was nifta a few years ago. Personal ish, a Muslim and everything. He left over all those the Torah that he learned. He went through Masechtas and Masechtas and Masechtas, and he was also had the same Bitachon and Chochmah with a few words, not speaking just extra word, but every word that he spoke was like Mrs. Kipper with Chochmah. Somebody you looked up to a person who was a real Talmud Chacham, a real Talmud Chacham. We miss him a lot. He used to always come to the Besmedrish, special Mishnah Torah, delay Mishnah Torah. But for years before, in the beginning, first years when I was here, he used to always come every day together with his father. And Reb Beryl, a Talmud from Nitra, Talmud who learned in the yeshivas and was nitzel to a price, a Kohen Bracha. He came and a person who was a real Erlich Yid in every way. Yossi, so sagen gesund stark, Emes Talmud Chochem, the Kibbutz Aim, unbelievable, the Kibbutz Aim. Anything he could do for his parents, anything. Remember first when he was a bucker, and then later when he got married, and his whole life. But Emes Talmud from Philadelphia, and Emes Talmud Chochem in every way, in his way. It all comes. Come up in every Ashur. Where does it come from? It's come from the mama, the tata. Such a mama. Apple from the boim. Such a mother like Mrs. Kipper. You have to have children like this. The mother that's fully Ritzayin Hashem. Everything she did was Ritzayin Hashem. Everything she did was with Torah. And when you spoke to her, you spoke to somebody who knew halacha, someone who knew Chazal, someone who knew Tanakh, someone who knew her whole upbringing from Torah. I enjoyed so much speaking to her because you learned so much from every word that she spoke. The daughter, Sally, saw Gittel Zazan Gesunder Shak Shraber Pur Shalema. They were together in the hospital. She should give her now. She didn't know that her daughter was sick. She was there together. There's no reason she should know. Now she knows. I'm sure now she's going up to Shemayim to daven for Sar Gittel Bas Mirel, that she should have her for Shleim so Chali Yisrael. V'avas Medrash. This is like the closure of the old guard of the Beis Medrash. People who were guardians of the Medrash, Mr. and Mrs. Kipper, Reb Beryl and his wife, Mamish, the guardians of the Medrash, the way they davened, the way they learned, the way they did everything, the way they brought up their children, the Derech Yisrael Sava, and that's what her whole being was. A being of her whole being was doing Ratzayin Hashem, doing what Rabban Hashem wants, doing the Ratzayin Hashem to help people. And by every simcha be'as, the way she felt it was her simcha. She participated, not that she's coming to my simcha. She sent things for the family, and for every simcha. She always would say, the Siman Simcha. We really will miss her a lot. Miss her. Last year wasn't well, but every time I spoke to her, last time I saw her by a chasana, and she became older, but you still saw the chashivas from the Alta Haim. Chashivas of a woman going still with the derech avos, the derech emois. Mirel is really a short form of Miriam. Miriam and Aviyah. This week's parsha. Miriam and Aviyah took us aside from Acholos. She went and sang Shira, and everyone sang Shira with her. Shira Hashem Kegoy Go. She is the one who sang and saw the greatness of the Rabbeinu Shleilam. The greatness of the Rabbeinu Shleilam. This is what she took. What's the greatness of the Rabbeinu Shleilam? That helped Klal Yisrael. Sure, he helps Klal Yisrael. But that he went and took Nekama from those who go against Klal Yisrael. Both the Sus and the Reichem, and one way the Inyam Sus v'Reichvay is, the Kasha, the Rambam asks, why was Mitzrayim para punished? But the teretz is, the punishment had to be, but the horse and the rider both get punished. You were the horse, they were the Mitzrayim, were the ones who, the Reichvay. In the same way, Mefarshim also explained, a woman gets rewarded for everything her husband and her children do. Just like the Reichev and the Sus goes together with the Reichev. A woman, everything the children do, everything all the children, the grandchildren, Baruch Hashem, every one of the children, Baruch Hashem, all the families, Getzel's families, and Sally's family and Yossi's family, mamish, every one of them, Baruch Hashem, chashuvim in every way. And this is the sus, the woman who behind every person who learns and everyone does mitzvahs, every man, behind the great Gabbai, Reb Beryl was the great woman, Mrs. Kipper. But Mrs. Kipper, on her own standing, she was a woman who cared so much for Yikal Yisrael. Every time when something happened, she used to call me up crying. What could we do more? We have to daven more. We have to do more. Do more. Baruch Hashem, Rebbe Hashem gave us such nachas, such beautiful children, Baruch Hashem, grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Rebbe Hashem hoped that she should be in Mrs. Yosef first for her daughter. So her Gittel Bas Mirel should have a complete report Shlema. She should be in Mrs. Yosef for the whole family. But one thing is unbelievable. Sometimes you say that Kolossi Kibiti, my daughter-in-law, that's like my daughter. Sometimes you could say Kolossi more than Biti. Malka Kipper, unbelievable. What she did for Mrs. Kipper. What she did for Mrs. Kipper, I was speaking to my wife, more than a daughter. More than a daughter. She was Masiach Das. She had to go to her own grandchildren's chasana. This, her mind was the whole time on Mrs. Kipper. Whatever she did. I mean, Mrs. Kipper was zeicha to have such a son like Getzel, which was zeicha to have such a daughter-in-law like Malki. So dedicated in every way, caring so much, so caring and doing. Some people care and don't do, some people do and don't care. Caring and doing. Bansham should be Mishalem her for everything. She should continue to have nachas from her children and grandchildren. Yossi, Mamashim, we were very close all the years, Yossi, to have us nefesh, someone who was whole Metzias is for the Rabbeinu Shalom, to learn, to do erlich, everything he did, the children, and Baruch Hashem, he was zeicha to the Shechashiv Mishpacha, and Rabbeinu Shalom that he should continue. And Sally and her husband and the whole Mishpacha should all be zeicha to learn and remember their grandparents, to remember their grandmother, to remember what kind of grandmother she was. Like every time, just remembering, it's a Klinkman iron her words, the beautiful, beautiful expressions she had, the beautiful words that she said always, and the way she davened with Ehrlichkeit, and the way she did everything mitzvahs. She Yosher for the whole family, Yosher for the Kehillah that she cared so much for, Yosher for Toronto, Yosher for Eretz Yisrael with the hostages and everything and all that's going on. She was to see that Bilam Avos HaNetzach, Malach Hashem Kimim Al Kapanim, to be zoich to see Tchias HaMeisim B'meir B'yameinu Amen.
Shus the Rov Shlita, Kol HaKol HaKodesh Hazeh. Vayikach Moshe es atzmois Yosef imoi. Moshe Rabbeinu took care of the atzmos Yosef. Chazal comment, Chacham leiv yikach mitzvos. Moshe Rabbeinu is begeder Chacham leiv, a wise heart. Yikach mitzvos. He takes the mitzvahs. This Shevat, this praise of Moshe Rabbeinu, is highlighted against the backdrop of the rest of Klal Yisrael, who were busy borrowing the items, the gold and silver, as they were commanded to do, to take from the Mitzrayim. if they were both performing mitzvahs. Moshe Rabbeinu busy with the Atzmas Yosef. Klal Yisrael with the gold and silver that they were told to take from the Mitzrayim. Why is Moshe Rabbeinu praised? Why is it he alone gains this Shevach of Chacham Lev? The Mefarshim explained. Both were mitzvahs. What Moshe Rabbeinu did and what Klal Yisrael did. However, a mitzvah that comes at a personal cost, a mitzvah that comes with self-sacrifice, that is a greater type of mitzvahs. For that, Moshe Rabbeinu deserves the title, Chacham Lev, Yikach Mitzvahs. Klal Yisrael did a mitzvah, but the mitzvah enriched them, while Moshe Rabbeinu's mitzvah came at a personal cost. He wasn't able to take and borrow the gold and silver from the Mitzrayim. He was busy with the Atzmas Yosef. Hence Moshe Rabbeinu, involved in that higher level mitzvah of self-sacrifice, is worthy of the distinction Chacham Lev Yikach Mitzvahs. Furthermore, Rav Schwab, Zechrono Livracha, adds an additional insight. Moshe Rabbeinu understood how to choose mitzvahs. A Chacham Lev mitzvahs, when he's confronted with two mitzvahs, both being tzivuyim from Hashem, equally important, he'll choose the mitzvah that others cannot or will not perform the way he can. Moshe Rabbeinu felt that this mitzvah of Atzmas Yosef was incumbent upon him more than anybody else. Yosef personally accompanied his father to Eretz Yisrael to be buried as the leader of Klal Yisrael. Therefore Yosef deserved to be escorted to his burial by the leader of Klal Yisrael, Moshe Rabbeinu. Only Moshe Rabbeinu knew how to retrieve the Aron of Yosef from the depths of the river, as the Medrash says. Moshe Rabbeinu is called the Chacham Lev. Moras Mirel, Bas Reb Levi Yosef, Mrs. Kipper Olah Hasholem. Chacham Lev, that Chochmas HaLev, defined her life. The mitzvahs, the chesed, the tefillah, even at a personal cost, even in difficult times, when she could do it the best, she took to the challenge. During her lifetime, she endured many challenges, always with the deep-rooted emunah and unbelievable positivity. And she used her challenges to gain Chochmas Lev. And with that, she helped so many others throughout her life. She came from a choshev mishpacha. Her parents were killed in the war when she was only 13 years old. She survived, as well as one brother and one sister. Came to Toronto, then married, as the Rov said, Reb Beryl, Kipper, Olav Shalom, the Gabbai, in the Agudah here. And together, they built a family of children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren. Talmidei Chachomim, Yirei Hashem b'chosh ve'shmoi, Oiskim b'tzorchei tzibur be'amunah, being makar of people and bringing them closer to Torah and mitzvahs. For decades, she lived on Burncrest. Next door, to my Shver and Shviger and to the Youngers. 3 houses in a row. They were all very close. My wife and her siblings grew up with the Kippers and the Youngers. My Shviger told me that she was a very special woman, very special person. So erlich, so fine, never complained, regardless of her nisyonis, and they were many, and they were difficult. It was truly amazing how she always remained positive throughout it all. That was part of her chokhmas haleiv. She always looked to help other people, even in her own personal trying situations. Her husband was in bake risk for 3 years. It was a very difficult decision for her to move him to bake risk, but she had no choice. She would go there to help him eat, and she met a woman with MS, who wasn't able to physically function. When she would go to her husband, she would feed that woman as well. She used that chokhmas haleiv, the chacham leiv mitzvahs, that only she could learn and she could do, and used it to help that woman, and continued with that even after the patira of her husband. All week long she would prepare for Shabbos, to be able to give packages to her children and grandchildren, as well as so many others, cakes and cookies and other treats for Shabbos, as only she was able to do with that dignity and that grace. As an almana, she would help and be mechazik other almonas in their plight that she understood ever so well. With her chokhmas haleiv, chacham leiv, yikach mitzvahs. As a Baal Nisoyan, she learned that chokhmas haleiv and was able to use it to be able to build, support, and help so many others. She would knit for people, family, friends, a chokhmas haleiv that she already learned and started in Europe and continued throughout her life. She lived to give, she lived to help, to use that chacham leiv for yikach mitzvahs. Many people quote a pasuk at the end of Shemoneh Esrei, symbolizing their name, representing their essence. The pasuk for Mirel is Matoivu oyolecha Yaakov mishkaneisecha Yisrael. She helped in this Beis HaKnesses, the Matoivu oyolecha Yaakov. Tehillim every Monday. She would assist her husband, who was many years as a gabbai. I remember as a child, we would come here for bar mitzvahs. Reb Beryl was the gabbai. She discussed issues of gabos with him. She helped and assisted in the programs and events of the shul. V'al kulam, Emunah pshuta, surviving the war as a very young teenager, living through so many nisyonis. And of course, the devastating loss of her tireless son, Reb Getzel, olav shalom, who blended Torah and mitzvahs and midas toivus, woven together so beautifully with his atznei aleches and midas anova. Yet through it all, she remained steadfast in her emunah tahira and her tehillim in the Beis HaKnesses, Matoivu oyolecha Yaakov mishkaneisecha Yisrael, being mechazik her family and continued on in her life of chacham leiv yikach mitzvahs. Memoras Mirel bas Reb Levi Yosef via malitzas yosher. For her daughter, she should have a refuah shalema b'karev. For all her children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren who were so devoted to her, as the Rov mentioned, all her relatives and friends, and she should continue to be an inspiration for us all. Av chacham leiv yikach mitzvahs, ad bias goel tzedek. Amen.
Rabbi Yossi Kipper. There's a lot to be said about my mother She's a very special person. Everyone who came in contact with her felt she was special. Time doesn't allow an arichis. We're told that we have to be out of here by 2 o'clock, and we're going to try to keep to that. There will be other speakers, and all of us will try to consolidate what our thoughts and our emotions regarding my mother. And I appreciate what the Rov Shlita said and Yaakov Shlita spoke, and all true. And it's all a part of everyone's thoughts about my mother. I feel that a lot of people connected with my mother, especially in her older years, after having lost their parents. They saw in my mother a personification of their own parents. They saw Dal Tahaim. They saw Emunah Pshuta. They saw Bitachon. They saw the Rebbeinu Shalom in every step. This was a doer that survived the war. Everyone was like that, in different Nakudis. My mother brought it out in a way sometimes that that's people's own parents didn't have, but she sort of articulated it in a stronger way. So everyone felt this emotional connection with my mother, especially, like, as I said, in her older years. And it's because of that. Everyone felt that now that they lost a part of themselves. The door that's almost gone. And we have to recognize that they don't make it like that anymore. I feel that she was always strong in Emunah. I feel that she sort of was able to take adversity and turn it into growth. And take a look at what happened with my father, Shalom, sick. He was not an old man at all. And everything was like an avalanche on her head, including my chasana that she made. Well, my father was living, but it was my mother who made the chasana. And she turned it into a period of growth where she steiged in Emunah, in Bitachon, in the Rev Beryl, and carried her for the rest of her life. And faced, as was mentioned, adversity, very hard challenges. I want to just share with you 2 things. Both benegea a very terrible tkufa in my mother's life, the loss of my brother, Reb Getzel. I remember the Levaya was the last day of Chol Hamoed Pesach, Tovshin Ayin Tes. On Shvi Shel Pesach, I came home. My mother was sort of impatiently waiting for me. She wanted to tell me something. That Suda, I was eating with my mother alone. The others, we were the rest of the mishpacha. At that moment, she wanted to share with me something. She told me, she said she was looking around the house. She said she was looking for episode Vartira or something which was her habit. And she couldn't find anything really, that was neged. Pesach, she just pushed, couldn't find anything. And she found something on Parsha Shmini from Rabbi Victor Miller. She said she started reading it. She said the Rebbeinu Shalom hat es geschickt. The Rebbeinu Shalom sent this message to her. What was the message? Parsha Shmini describes the Chanukah Mishkan. It's a big day in Klal Yisrael. And Rabbi Miller describes the triumph of Elisheva Bas Aminadov, who was Aaron Cohen's wife, Rebbetzin. And he describes how Elisheva Bas Aminadov, think of it, Aaron Cohen's becoming the Cohen Gadol, the sons are becoming Kehanim. This is a moment of terrific joy. And what happened in the end? Nadav and Avihu are suddenly gone in a flash. So Rabbi Miller has this shtickle where he says that the Rebbeinu Shalom doesn't always want you to be totally happy. He takes away some of the happiness from you. That's darkei. That's the derech and hag of the Rebbeinu Shalom. The Olam Hazeh is not for pure simcha. So my mother in typical form said, "Look, this happened to me." She says, "I had to sell my house. I sold my house. I moved to a particular spot where I can be next to my son. And I thought it was in good shape. I got myself a nice place, and I'm right next to my son. And I was looking forward to, be Ma'arich Yomim and with my son together. Get a kick what happened. Look what happened. Rebbeinu Shalom doesn't want me to be so happy. This is Kabbalah's din. Kol mada ovid rachmana l'tav ovid. In a very, and this is how she internalized. It was mentioned previously how she took the Torah and she internalized it and lived with it. It's not like stam when you hear a dvar Torah. Okay, no, she lived it. This was a bitter pill, but this is kol mada ovid rachmana l'tav ovid in a big way. And this is how she lived her life. I have a lot to say, but I want to say one more thing as far as my mother, and this is without any words. And this is a message to my family, to the broad family, also by my brother's Shiva. And then I was departing in the middle of Shiva to go to Lakewood and sit Shiva there. And so I'm going to be Menachem Oval, my mother, my sister-in-law Malki, and all the Bnei Mishpach. I couldn't get the words of Hamokim Menachem Esken, Pesach Shari Avelitzi and Rishulayim. I couldn't. My mother takes a look at me, and she didn't say a word. She looks at me with a penetrating look, and she nods her head, and then she just goes and wags her finger. That's not the way to do it. And she clenched her fist. Stark. She didn't say it, but I'm saying that was the message. She was a big believer. I don't know if she knew the member of the Chovos HaLevavos, the Tzalosai Alpana Evloi Beliboy, but I don't know if she knew the member. I didn't personally hear it from her. Maybe she knew. Maybe she did hear the Chovos HaLevavos, but she certainly lived it. Total dignity, stark, stolz, smile. What you do and what you suffer is in your own private room, not for the public. And this is how she lived her life. A lot of Yisurim, but to the Olam, mit der Freilichkeit, the starke chizik. This is my mother. There's a lot more to say, but it's late. I do have to thank my sister-in-law Malki for everything that she did for my mother. And the grand plan obviously was, in our thinking, was that my sister and my brother would take care of my mother. And boom, didn't happen like that, exploded. It all fell on Malki. And she took it and she ran with it. But she, like the Rav said, better than a daughter. Did, with thought, with mass. It's unbelievable, unbelievable. And for the rest of the mishpacha carries a big debt of hakaras hatov. The schus should be oimid for her and for the whole bnei mishpacha. That she is a beautiful mishpacha. I also have to ask Mechila, Shem the mishpacha, and for me befrat, for any. I wasn't the best boy in the family, and I'm asking Mechila. Certain things we didn't agree with, hashkafa, but she understood me. Nevertheless, I asked Mechila for my mother, and we should all be zeicha to be makir, come to ha'akara, that one day we'll say ha'tova meitiv on everything. Nishtai and emes, this is Gemara Pesachim, can't be married. So sein Bilam of us Netzach, Moch Hashem Dimu Miyakol Pon.
Rabbi Glen Black. I'm going to try not to repeat. Bobby, where do we come from? The question is simple yet so profound. And we often asked her, Bobby, where do we come from? What did Erev Shabbos look like back in the Haim, back in Poland? Was Tu B'Shvat a big deal when you were a child? How did your father make Kiddush? Did he stand? Did he sit? How did he hold the kos? What's our Masorah? Who are we? Where do we come from? She was a living link to our past, the storyteller who connected us to our roots. Our children grew up with Bubi as a bridge to the past, to the legacy of the Jewish people. Through her, we were connected to something deeper than just history, to the very essence of who we were. And now, our children and our grandchildren turn to us for those questions. And to who do we turn? Bubi was, without a doubt, a survivor, but the word survivor doesn't begin to capture the essence of who she was. We all know the meaning of survivor, and we all know that Bubi was in every sense of the word. She survived the imaginable horrors of the Shoah and emerged in the darkness, not just to survive, but to build and to thrive on these shores. After everything she had been through, she rebuilt her life in Toronto, starting a family and raising 3 incredible children. We've heard a lot, we know them, who are living a proof of her resilience, who are living proof of her resilience and strength. They excelled in every area, in Torah learning, Torah living, all thanks to the foundation and path that she forged. Every Friday, the children and the grandchildren know this more than anyone else, she would prepare peklach, little packages for every family. There were lineups out the door and competition who would be lucky enough to visit her to collect her cookies, her gefilte fish, her schnitzel, many of which never made it home to share with others. These foods were a reminder of the love she poured into everything she did. Her knitting of the baby blankets, the sweaters, the scarves, each child with his own coat of arms, a degel for each Shevat. She loved to share Divrei Torah, to offer her wisdom and her warmth to everyone. Bobi's mind was so remarkable, so remarkable. She could remember languages, expressions, names, dates. She knew every grandchild by name and order of birth. And of course, we know we don't count, but it's dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens. Bobi, you were a teacher, not just in the classroom, but in every moment of your life. You touched the lives of so many, each one remembers you with deep fondness and gratitude. Some over 50 years ago, but even more importantly, they remembered you because you molded them and gave them their first taste of Simchas HaChaim. When our grandson Nachi had his Pidyon Ben, you were there. Even though it was very difficult, not easy to walk, to get dressed, to make the trip, but you were there. It's a simcha, you said. How can you not be there? When our son Yirmi and Tamara got married during the height of COVID, and most people did not attend, you would not miss it for the world. You came, you danced, you were there, celebrating life and guiding all of us along the way. You were always asking about the next simcha, always wanting something to look forward to, excited about your family's milestones. Another reason to dance, another reason to celebrate, another reason to find joy. Simchas HaChaim. You've heard it many times. Bobi's resilience was unmatched. When she lost Zeta Beryl, she was devastated, yet she kept on giving, kept on being there for everyone else. You heard the story about Baycrest. She was a survivor in every way. Losing a son, going through so much, but through it all, she never lost her Bitachon, her Emunah, her love, and her dedication and determination for life. Bobi was a fighter, determined, always pushing herself to do more. Even in her final months, when her body grew weaker, she kept fighting. Even as her body weakened, her spirit was always strong. She had a walker, and she couldn't get up from the walker. So in order to get up, she would engage herself and fortify herself. 1, 2, 3, get up, she would say. And she did. She never wanted to miss out on anything. Even yesterday, when she was so frail, she told us, I'm doing better. I'm going to go home, and that's what I'm going to do. Always moving forward. I once asked her on a Friday night, and she visited, Bobi, after everything, how did you remain frum after the Shoah? She thought about it for 30 seconds, and she said, I want you to know, it was simple. I did not want to disappoint my parents. She told a story to my wife and I that she had not repeated to anybody. When she was a young child, her father was very sick, I guess in the ghetto, wherever it was, and she had to run underneath a wall or a fence, and she ran to a local pharmacy, hiding who she was, of course, and the pharmacist could not believe this young Jewish girl was there, maybe 8, 9 years old, 10 years old, earlier. She said, what are you doing here? I need to get medicine for my father. She says, you're risking your life. That's true. I only have one father. I think those words meant more to her, more to us than just a physical father. She only has one, Avinu Shabashamayim, and she taught us that as well. Bobi, you did not disappoint your parents. Look at the family and the legacy you built. Generations and generations of Erlicha committed Yidden. Every child, every grandchild, every great-grandchild walks in the path that you paved for them. We only hope that we make you as proud as you made your parents. I also want to, there is so much to say and there's really no time. I just want to take one more minute and thank Malki, who in our family really did something quite suprahuman. Gemara Yoma says that there are 3 people, if God forbid, after a person passes away, they might say, I couldn't learn Torah because I was so wealthy. I couldn't learn Torah because I was so poor. I couldn't learn Torah because I was involved with my own personal beauty. Gemara says that if you were so poor, look at Hillel Azaken, who sacrificed everything, who had nothing. You were so rich, like Rabbi Lazar ben Charsom, who owned ships and communities and villages, and yet never sacrificed a moment of Torah learning. And you were so focused on yourself. Look at Yosef HaTzadik. He was tempted, and he never gave in. Malki, I want you to know that in our family, and really for the Jewish people, after Me'ah V'Esrim Shana, people are going to say, well, I couldn't do that kind of chesed, I couldn't participate, I couldn't give of myself. I think, Malki, your name should be added to the story in that Gemara, because you're a true paradigm of chesed, for devotion to others, for giving of yourself, regardless of the personal challenges or demands you face. You could have given many excuses, the pressures of daily life, your own needs, your own family, but you never did. You didn't let any of that stop you from being there for Bubi. You're always by her side, always caring for her, always making sure she had everything she needed. Your kindness was not a fleeting thing. It wasn't just in the moment. It was a constant, unwavering, and rooted in the deepest love. Malki, your chesed is a living example to all of us. Your selflessness, your devotion to family, your generosity, it's a legacy in and of itself. And you are Bubi's true daughter in every way that matters. And we are also fortunate to have you on our side, in our lives, and allowing us to share in some of those moments. Bila hamavis lanetzach macha Hashem timal kol panim.
Mira Kipper.
Very often when a Rov or a Shiva passes away, you'll see a statement made based on the Gemara in Bava Basra, Oilo l'sfina she'avad kabernita, woe to the ship who's lost its captain. And I think that our mishpacha feels right now that we've lost our captain for the last, since Zayd was nifter. I think we all know that Bubi has been leading our family. She's led by example. She's led by what she's told us. She's led with her wisdom. She's led with her actions. She has showed us how to live. And now we're bereft. We don't have Bubi anymore. But now Bubi's in a very good place now. I mean, she's going up to Shemayim. She's going to see the reward for all her maisim, through all the tzaras, through all the nisyonis, through all the yisurim. And if she would have been able to look now, at the end of her life, if she'd been able to look at it from right after the war, when she was left with nothing, you could picture what the Navi Yeshaya says, what Tzion's going to say when Mashiach comes, and they see and Tzion's going to say, Mi yolad li es eila. You see how many kids there are. V'ani shechula v'galmuda. I had nothing. I was bereft. I was alone. Goyla v'sura. She was in a DP camp. She had no home. She had nowhere to go. Ve'ela mi gidel. Heina nina sharti levadi. She even had her sister, and then her sister got married and moved to New York. She was left alone. Eila ifayhem. And if she could see back then, if she would have been able to see what she was going to build, the mishpacha that she was able to build, the lives that she touched through her chesed. Now that Gemara in Bava Basra is talking about Avram Avinu. When Avram Avinu was nifter, they gave two espedim. They said, Oila la'olam shavad manhigoi, v'oila l'svino shavad kabernita. The Marsha says that there were two inyanim that Avram taught the world that they were giving a hesped on. Oila la'olam shavad manhigoi, that Avram taught the world about the manig, it taught the world about a Kadosh Baruch Hu, and Bubi taught us emunah. You couldn't speak to Bubi and not walk away being touched by her emunah and being mechazik in your own emunah. Just what she went through and the positivity that she had and the way she was able to guide us. And the Oila Lisina Shava Kabernita, the Maharsha says it's her is Midas. Avram taught the world Midas. And we talked about Bubi's chesed. I remember watching her feed Mrs. Katz on the 10th floor of Baycrest. I remember it. And she wasn't just feeding her al's chesed, she became her friend. These were people that she loved. Bubi also was she had such an emes to her. She would not say anything that wasn't emes. She was so straight. She was so straightforward. And that's why anytime anything Bubi said, Bubi told us something, we had to listen. We had such respect for her. Last year we drove in to be Menachem Oval, someone, and we wanted to drive back overnight, and Bubi said, don't drive back overnight. We listened. Bubi said something, you had to listen. It was just the koyach of her personality, and we had to hear. We had to hear and we had to listen. And Bubi had such a leiv tov, I will say, and it's been mentioned many times what my mother did for Bubi, but I will tell you that right after Shiva for my father, Bubi came into the house. She said she wants to make a meeting. You never did this. She said she wants to make a meeting. She sat us all down at the table, and she said she has a very important message to give to us. And what was this message that was so important to tell us right after the Shiva for my father? She said, you have to be mechabed your mother. Your mother is amazing. Look what she did to you for your father for the last 6 months. This is something you have to be mechabed her more than you're doing until now. You have to keep doing it. You have to take care of her. You have to be mechabed her. This was what was on her mind the whole Shiva. That we should take care of my mother, that she should, look what she did for your father. Now you should take care of her. And the relationship was reciprocal, and you see how Bubi took care of my mother took care of Bubi. And Bubi was so strong. She came after the war. Where did she get this koyach from? She took all that pain and all that hurt from what she went through in the Milchama, and she channeled it inside, and she just came up with such tremendous strength. And what she did was unbelievable what she was able to build, and we see the payers to this day. You know, Bubi's right now, she's going to a lichtige Gan Eden, and we know that. She's reuniting with her parents, with her siblings, with my father, Zechron Livracha. She's not in any pain anymore. It's just us who are left. We're left to remember her. We're left to, as Glenn said, that she didn't want to disappoint her parents. She always had her parents in front of her. And it's our job now to keep Bubi in front of us. And if we couldn't say no to Bubi, and I'll be the Seichel Anushi that we have, I can't imagine the Eibishter saying no to Bubi. And she's going to go up to Shemaim, she's going to go to the Kisei Kovid, she's going to be able to poilais all the Yeshuas, she's going to ask the Eibishter to send Mashiach, Mr. Shem, and Bila Mavis L'Netzach, Moch Hashem Dim Me'al Kol Ponim.
Rabbi Yaakov Kipper. A few weeks ago, I stayed with my mother and Bubi for Shabbos in a Bikur Cholim apartment. Bubi was in the hospital in Sunnybrook and in terrible pain. But we spent Shabbos, Kiddush, Amoitzis, Miras. She was still singing. In the morning, my mother was trying to give her something to eat. She said, I didn't daven. Bubi said, I didn't daven yet. I'd say brachas. I said, you're a chayla. She wanted to say brachas. She said brachas shachar. She gave. There was more. She said it louder, more hearts, more. Said of it, you could hear it much stronger. I was thinking her life was a life of a noisei loyoif koyach. As was been mentioned, what she went through, she always had koyach. Tremendous amount of koyach that she needed, she had that koyach. And she knew, this is what she said, she knew, she had that koyach, the Rebbeinu Shalom will give koyach. And that's how she go through what she went through, as has been mentioned, in the camps. After the camps, in the orphanage, she always said she stood up to the administrators, the people in charge, and said there was something that was wrong with the kashrus there. She stood up for all the girls, said that they're not eating until the
So they have to fix up the kashrus. This was as a girl of 16. Then, as we mentioned, after my father passed away, Chazak v'amatz, he told me, Boinu Shalom will give koyach. Finally, in these last weeks, what did she want koyach for? She was constantly asking about the final simcha she wanted to get through the simcha. She shouldn't, when is the bar mitzvah, when is the chasana? Don't want to disturb the simcha. She had koyach for that too. Anoisin lo yev koyach. What gave her chiyas? Torah of avodah, gemilas chasadim. Torah was well known in the family. You say a word, you have to be careful. Nobody's going to have a ha'ara, a comment, and nachab pshat, a different pshat. Tzanurena, Rov Rabbi Lowy, she heard by the shir. Last year, she said my father would bring her Hasidic Torah. She liked the Hasidic pamphlet. She had a Hasidic Torah she liked to share. And Avodah, her sitter, her Tehillim, when this last time when she was in the hospital, she asked, she needs a smaller thing. She needs a Kriya Shema. She has to be able to say Shema at night. She can't hold the sitter. She wants something that she could hold. She wasn't able to hold the sitter. She wanted to say Shema. And the Shem Shemayim was always shoger for her. She always was, phone conversations always had a certain flow, had a certain seder to them. Whenever we called her on the phone, the important thing is that everyone's gesund, you're learning well, everyone's going in the proper way. The B'nai Shalom should give, continue to give. Gemilas Chasadim. With Chasadim was as has been mentioned, all of the food that she sent, but it wasn't just food. It was food that when she found out that someone liked something, man, it's honey garlic chicken. I like honey garlic chicken. I'll make honey garlic chicken. Egg rolls. These things it was older years already, but someone liked something, and in the past years, she made every regularly gluten-free for my mother, bilkas, blintzes. And what the hardest thing about when she lost her kayach, when she lost that kayach, she couldn't give anymore. She wasn't able to give. That's what it was about for her. She was taking when she was giving. There was the Holocaust. She gave an interview for the Holocaust to tell over her on video to what she went through in the Holocaust. But what she mentioned the most there was how what she took from her parents. And what she passed on to the next dar, that's what was chashiv to her. When she said over that her grandfather used to tell, the Zayda would say Zog Nishmas. He taught her this Zayda taught her something, maybe how to read, and she would tell her Zog Nishmas. The Rav said last night that she should say Nishmas with her. So her life was a life of Nishmas. Her life was a life of giving shavach, a life of kiddush Shem Shemayim. Amen.
Molei rachamim shoichein mamiroimim amtzei menucha nechayna al kanvei hashchina b'malos kedoshim utahirim kezayar harakia mazhirim es nishmas Mirel bas Levi Yosef Sholcha lo'ilama bavur sheyitnu tzedaka v'adas koras nishmasa b'gan Eden tehei menuchasa v'chein bal rachamim yastireha b'seisik k'nafav lo'ilamim v'yitzra achayim es nishmasa Adonai hu nachalasa B'sanuach b'shalayim al mishkavav v'noimar amen.
Funeral will take place B'sei Chaim of the Spanish of Agudah Yisrael. Mincha the Mincha will be at 5:25 at 3000 Bathurst Apartment 406, followed by Marek Shachris. During the week will be at 7:30 and Sunday will be at 8 o'clock. Mincha on Friday will be at 1:30.
For all those who are on Zoom, we will be showing the actual Levaya from the shul down the street. But the Kvura at this point is not, the actual Kvura will not be available on Zoom. Once again, we stay, if you'd like to be Malava still from the shul down the Gilvery, stand by. Thank you. At this point in time, I'd like to thank the Chevra Kadisha, of course. I'd like to thank the Rov Shlita. I'd like to thank Mrs. Kipper. What an honor for all of us that she was a part of our base medrash. Family should have simchas. The Shiva information will be posted. Please send messages to the family. We'll leave the chat open for another 5 minutes if anybody wants to post a message that I could send forward to the family. The mitzvah of Nichum Avelim is separate from that, but at this time, if you have thoughts and you want to add it, please do so. Thank you. We should meet up simchas.